Hey, welcome back everyone. Well, in a previous video you might remember I pulled the intake manifold. Now that the intake manifold is off, I'm going to attempt to remove the fuel injectors, and most likely I will just change the gaskets on them. I believe they're working, and I may also change the fuel pressure regulator, but I am really having a lot of trouble seeing where the mounting bolts are. I almost got to gut it like a fish to get to the work. I removed this hose here, this vacuum line hose here, where'd it go? Vacuum line hose right over here, goes on there. This one goes up to the intake manifold. I am getting a little bit better view now. I believe I can get this hose off now, and let's go ahead and move these heater hoses off too. I'm going to go ahead and remove this hose right here from this pipe. Anyway, there's a nut here. I believe it's a 11 millimeter. Also, there's another nut back there, and this air pipe should come out and allow me access to the fuel rail. I believe this pipe is loose now. That back nut was a real pain, I will tell you. Decided to remove the rest of the EGR hose here, fitting, and the hard part about that is getting it off of the exhaust down there. There's the nut right above the starter. Everything's in the way, but that's the nut that needs to come loose. And I used a crescent wrench. I believe that is more than 1 1/16. Might be 1 1/8. Okay, here's the bottom end of the pipe. And you can see the top end is a whole bunch smaller. This is kind of hard to get to. Might be able to get to it easier from underneath. I don't know. But I did it from the top. Well, before I do anything, I got to get these metal clips off. Ouch. And yeah, I found it. I used a little screwdriver to pry with. These fuel lines are really difficult to get apart. What I did is I sprayed a little lubricating oil up inside the spring this way before I put my disconnect red piece on. I also sprayed some silicone up in there as well. I slid the red piece in all the way. What it did is it compressed the spring inside here, and it contacted this metal ring right here, and it allowed the spring to slide this way past the metal ring. Now you could feel it snap in a little bit and compress the spring. At least I could on this one here. I'm having a little difficulty with this one back here, but I started to try and pull it apart from holding on right here and here, of course, as well, and just wiggling back and forth and back and forth, and pulling and trying to push that red ring in further, and it wouldn't go any further, which told me it was up against the stop, the little lip there. And I'm wiggling and pulling and wiggling, and I'm finally starting to see a little daylight, but this has been difficult. You can see that this plastic disassembly tool has done its job. It has allowed the spring inside this collar here to get over this lip right here. And now what I'm doing is I'm just working this line. This is a covering. This part here is a covering. This is a covering. There's a line underneath these. Right here's the line. And I'm allowing it to I'm just holding on to this and working back and forth and pulling at the same time. And it's very difficult. It's very stubborn, and a little progress at a time. But I can see a little opening starting right in here now. I'm going to just start pulling back and forth till I get it. Okay, I pulled it apart. Very little gasoline came out. So there's the two O-rings. And there's the line. That's about all the gasoline that come out. I will probably lubricate those with some oil, motor oil, when I put them back in. Anyway, I cut the fingers, got a nitrile glove, and I banded it, the rubber bands, and the material in the nitrile gloves is good against fuel, so I feel confident that those will be pretty good. As you can see, the second one's working pretty much the same way. I've got it past the lip, and the collar is pulling back, and I'm starting to see a little room there, daylight I'll say, where the fitting is coming out. I'm removing the connections to the electrical connections to the fuel injectors, and I'm probably not doing this the right way, but what I'm trying to do is pry this little black piece up a little bit on this side, and then not too much because you break it, and then prying with a big screwdriver while I'm pulling at the same time. Pull it up a little bit and sort of pry it back some, then pull. Okay. And I'm just going down the line doing that. It doesn't seem to be too hard, trying to keep from breaking the little pieces right here that hold it on there. I've also found that a little tiny bent screwdriver will do the same thing. With the connections disconnected, I'm going to remove this bolt here, this bolt back here, and the one back there, right there. And the fuel rail will be loose, and then I'll have to pull the fuel injectors out of their little sockets in the intake there. Well, it seems I got some wiring harness connectors I should remove. They just, actually, if you get hold of them just right, this way I think. Okay, yeah, they just pull off rather than having to take a little screwdriver and do it. I believe the wiring vacuum line harness is out of the way, and there's three bolts holding the fuel rail on. Okay, now the only thing that's holding this fuel rail are the injectors and their O-rings and their seats, and they'll have to be wiggled out. This whole thing needs to be wiggled out. I bought this tool probably 15 years or more ago, and it's an injector inspector. It has a slide switch, and you can pulse the injector from 1 pulse to 10 pulses to 3.5 pulses. All you have to do is just push the button right here. Tester came with a kit that has all kinds of adapters and what have you, but it connects to your battery. I'm doing a little back and forth and pulling at the same time. Good golly. I'm going to go ahead and remove this first O-ring. That's very easy. Probably worn out, that's why. There's videos where you can wrap some tape around a straw and hook it up to a carburetor cleaner. Put it in here, cycle your fuel injector, and check your spray pattern out this way. I have a piece of tape wrapped around a straw to a can of carb cleaner. I'm going to insert the carb cleaner into this little area here and hold on to it. At the same time, I am going to cycle my fuel injector and it is on right now. You can maybe hear it, and I'm going to spray the cleaner. Get more carb cleaner on my hands, and my tape did not hold very well. I'm going to go ahead and replace this pintle cap and the O-ring and the spacer down here. I bought kits, look like this. New pintle, new spacer, and 2 O-rings. These pintle caps are so stuck on, I am actually having to cut it a little bit just to loosen it up. There. Well, that one didn't go flying too far. These up. I got an O-ring here. Don't really need a tool with these. They're so loose. As I'm pushing this pintle cap on, I hear an audible click or snap. So I know it's on there. The O-rings go on just as easy as they came off. They are a little tighter though. And here's the audible snap that I'm hearing. Now I can hear it cycling. The problem is I got a nice pattern out of that one. I would say that's pretty nice. Number 4, the one I was worried about. So I'm going to continue on with the rest of these injectors. I got about 3 more after this one. I believe it's time to put fuel rail back in. And we'll get a little oil on these. I believe it's there. Time to reattach the fuel lines, and I'm going to put a little 0W20 on the O-rings. Okay, I'm hoping to hear some sort of she's going to be stubborn. There we go. That felt solid. Same way with this return line, I believe. Well, that guy wanted to go on easy. I don't see any leaks anywhere. There's a Schrader valve back here, and there should be pressure in this. Yeah. Let me hook up that pressure gauge. I remembered to reinstall the fuel line safety clips. I don't see any leaks around the injectors anywhere. I'm getting fuel from this. I don't know if you saw that fuel dripping out of there, but I'm sure you can probably see the fuel that's coming out of here, right here. This is connected and it was coming out of there. I'm going to have to replace this. I'm using a number 4 Allen wrench. Here's a little snap. Looks like there's a dab of Loctite on these. Wiggle on off, I believe. The diaphragm is what was bad in this, not the O-ring. It wasn't leaking around the base, it was coming out through the top. Using a new one right here. And I'm going to put a little light motor oil around the O-ring here. And in we go. Not really wanting to seat right down flush like I would like it to, but we'll see what happens once I get it hooked up. I'm going to use a little thread locker. I'm going to use the blue stuff. It's medium strength, just maybe 1 drop on each screw. I'm going to go around and tighten these down a little at a time. See if I can pull that gasket up a little better. Or the gasket, but the O-ring. Before I really give it a little snugging here. Got to check for leaks. It's been a while and it's holding at, I would say 35. Seemed to have stopped right there. I'm putting the air pipe back in. This air pipe is a cooling pipe for the injectors. It has fresh air coming from this right here, which is a fan. This is an 11mm bolt in the back. I'm using this 1/4 inch ratchet. Front one the same way, 11mm. I'm going to pull it up and then I'll go back and tighten both of them. Make sure the air hose is on good and snug. Okay, now I'm going to reconnect my heater hoses. I will put these on tighter in a minute. And then what I want to do is I want to bring this vacuum control unit around and it will fasten right here to this alternator bracket. The vacuum lines will go here and up here on top. This piece will go onto the EGR part, air part. Put the bolt in loose here, bracket. Install the hoses and the vacuum lines. I don't believe, and there's one hose on the back here. And you can see that it goes right there. Okay, I got my heater hoses hooked back up and this pipe's connected. Air hose, I mean. This one was never loose here. This goes to the manifold, so it's not on yet. That vacuum line's connected. This vacuum line's connected. I've got the whole assembly here mounted to the alternator bracket. And I think what I'm going to do next is put the EGR line that goes down to the exhaust manifold that I reach in from the top. Quite a little difficult reach. I'm going to use a crescent wrench on the bottom. This is kind of a very big nut. And I'll get that in. I won't get it totally tightened down until I have the manifold on and am able to get the top fitting position. So just for references, the EGR tube goes down inside that intake, lower intake, not over the outside. I think it's about time to put the intake manifold back. I have to remove this old gasket first. It just slips on there over studs. Going to clean the surface a bit with some carb cleaner. The gasket just goes in and slips over the dowel pins to hold itself in place. No need for any sealer on this at all. It's kind of nice. I removed the nut that holds this assembly to the alternator bracket because over here, right at the front of the intake, is another mount for it right there, and I believe it has to slip over the bolt and a nut goes on it. So I'm trying to get it lined up on the dowel pins, and there's plenty of room for that. Okay, there we go. I want to attach the intake manifold, and I'm going to start up here at the front with this. I'm going to attach the front bolt and part of this bracket. Then I'm going to attach a bolt in the center and the rest of the bracket. It's all going to be loose. And then I'm going to go to the back, and you can't see it on the back side of the manifold. And I'm going to put a bolt in there, and then I'll have 3 bolts in there. I'll also at the same time attach this ground probably to this bracket right here. And I believe I'll have 3 bolts in, and then I'll put the rest in, and they'll all be loose. When they're all in, then I'll go back and I'll tighten them up. These are not very tight. So that's the plan. Get this intake in there loose, put the EGR pipe on, and I still haven't tightened the intake support bracket on the other side. I have it attached but not tightened in, and the whole thing is going to be sitting in there loose, and I'm going to go back and tighten it all up. Alrighty, the intake is all tightened down. The EGR exhaust pipe is tightened. The vacuum lines are all positioned where they were. Big one goes over to the brake. All the EGR hoses and valves. I believe everything on this side is hooked up. Now I'm going to go over here. These wiring harness lines should be self-explanatory and just go right into where they came out from. I believe that is it. I do have a vacuum line. Where is it? Oh, it's under this hose here. You can't see it. Anyway, there's a vacuum line that goes from the switching valve down here that I broke little green piece here, and it goes up to a vacuum port right there. Okay, all the vacuum lines on this side, which there was one, hooked up, and that was to the EGR. And the electrical connections were obvious where they went. Those are all hooked up. Accelerator cable is hooked up and lubricated. So the next thing I'm going to do is get these off of here and put that little connector piece from here to here back. Okay, gotta tighten these down and it'll be done. Well, it's almost daylight out here. There's the chickens that make all the noise for these videos, if you were kind of curious. And they'll probably start up again anyway. But I've rolled the truck out into the sunlight a little bit. If anything in this video helped you out or you liked, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and that way you'll be notified when the next video comes along. And I'm going to start this up, but I'm not going to do it in this video. I'm going to do it in the next video. I will give you a hint. I have already started it, and I'm not really a happy camper yet. And until then, this is Cars, Trucks, and Detours. Bye for now.